It is basically proposed to enable better management of the risks which are arising due to climate variability and change, and appropriate strategy to the climate change. So providing better climate services by sharing climate information, climate predictions, knowledge, and best practices for the risk management. It will support the stakeholders to at all levels by providing them policy directions and management directions that increase their resilience to the impacts of the climate variability and climate change in all the sectors. Among all other things that will be discussed today, where a lot of scientific tools and media will be discussed, I personally feel that social media has become the media today for any sort of connecting with the masses. If we want to connect with the masses, if we want to connect with the community, if we want that last mile connectivity, social media is the way, and the of course television. And crowdsourcing of data is a very important tool where the information that is collected is from regions where possibly a particular scientist or a researcher cannot visit, cannot do field visit. It brings that region to him in his lab by crowdsourcing. So somehow in this whole debate, I would like the panelists to also uh, talk about the uses of social media and crowdsourcing of data and the truthfulness of the crowdsourcing and how to ensure. Because that I think is the way forward for connecting with the community. And that is my biggest concern today. That is why Dr. Anil Gupta has chosen this topic very aptly. That is popularizing. Not we are not talking about climate science. We are talking about how do we popularize this climate science. With that in as a keynote address or whatever address we call it, I will finish here because I'm keen to listen to all the speakers and the special address and inaugural address and learn a lot, because this is a subject which is very important for every stakeholder to follow. So once again, I welcome all the participants and the panelists for gracing this particular event, and thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much for opening remarks, Professor V.K. Sharma, for the keynote address. Vinod Kumar Sharma is currently Senior Professor of Management at Indian Institute of Public Administration and Vice Chairman, Sikkim Disaster Management Authority, Government of Sikkim. He has 14 books and published more than 100 research papers, articles, reports in area of his specialization, that is environment and disaster risk reduction. So I would move to Professor Sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Thinlis, and good morning to all of you. General Bansal sir, Professor Anil Gupta, Professor Akhilesh Gupta sir, my colleagues, Professor Santosh Kumar, Amir Ali, and all colleagues from NIDM. I compliment NIDM and Professor Anil Gupta for choosing this very important subject. And General Bindal rightly said that this is the time that we should convert this science, climate change science, to common sense and popularize it, and create public awareness, which is really needed. And in case you see the stakeholder, I think in climate change, every one of us is a stakeholder. Start with the policy makers, the top people up to the common man. Everybody is concerned with this. And when we are talking about popularization, I think we will have to popularize it in all the sectors, all the sections. We are fortunate that today Government of India and our Honorable Prime Minister, he has taken it a priority area basically. If you listen to him, in Man Ki Baat or any other, in his speech, it's always there that he's concerned with the climate change, and it's not only on paper, but the things which are started by Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Environment and Forest, and I think Government of India has mainstream climate change, or in fact trying to mainstream it, and trying to convey in so many words that it is not the subject only of a Ministry of Environment and Forest, but I think each and everyone should contribute into it. And I'm really happy that Professor Anil Gupta, uh, in every program I am seeing in disaster management, disaster risk reduction, I think there is a component of environment, there is a component of climate change, and rightly so, because we are seeing the impact of it. And today the media is also, whenever there is any big disaster, whenever there is, flood in Bihar or in UP or in 9 states, they mention that why this is so, and why it is increasing. So at least they understand that what is global warming, what is climate change, and what are the impacts. Today, I think there is a need that we should reach to the common man. And the best way is to reach to the common man is and in case we make it part of the school curriculum, I think now it is science, they are public, and creating more and more interest of students, and making education completely on taking on different platform, so that really people can be educated. It is not degree taking or taking. So I think I'm very happy that for after 28 years or 30 years, now Government of India has realized that some of the scientific issues, they should be taught in social sciences, and some of the social issues and economic issues should be taught in the IITs and in the science and technology. So I think which is there in the policy, it's a welcome change. Uh, Start with few stakeholders, because the topic is very big, and I'm having only 20 minutes, and I will make best use of these 20 minutes. I will say that the uh, schools, this is one of the very good target, in the sense that we have seen that on environmental issues, when we educated our primary school students, and they educated their parents, they educated their friends, and the impact is visible. Even in water conservation, in polythene use, or whatever, if we have gone to if we want to go to masses, I think school is one very good media. And by giving these things in a very simple terms, not the jargons, because there are, I agree with General Bindal that there are two aspects of it. One is purely scientific, which is science and technology, and our scientists are busy giving, they are assisting us, in that. There is meteorological aspects, so meteorology department, and they are very efficient, very, uh, uh, I should say, they are doing their job. But at the same time, when every common man, if you want to involve them, then start is the schools. And from school, the simple things, conservation of water, the energy saving and all these things start when you get in the morning till evening. What you are doing, I think it is all related to climate change and it is related to carbon footprints. So in case students are educated in this, definitely there will be impact of it. And the concept of this carbon footprint and making a chart of the carbon footprint, I think this is really in some of the schools when I go for lecture, I find that they are very much interested to know that how we can reduce carbon footprint. They have make a chart of their own one full day, the activities what they are doing, and one student asked me a question that suppose I am doing exercise in the morning, so how it is related to carbon footprint. So I gave a simple answer that in case you are doing exercise in the morning, in case you are going for a walk for a few minutes, in case you are doing yoga with your parents, then definitely you will be healthy. And when you will be healthy, then you will not take medicine. So if you are taking any pill, maybe for headache, maybe for, any chemical you are taking, your carbon footprint will increase. And that was so he was very happy with this answer. And he said that I think then the International Yoga Day and all these things which is started by this country, then this will decrease carbon footprint. So I said, certainly, in case we are healthy, in case even in COVID, our honorable Prime Minister, all the government, the people are saying that why you should do yoga every day. So, and in the instructions, in the guidelines of MHA, when you are reading all these things, this is basically related to climate change because you will be taking less in case you develop immunity, in case then even COVID will not affect you. So I think start from morning up to evening what you are doing, what type of clothes you are wearing in summers, what type of clothes you are wearing in winters. In I think each and every thing is important. And now there is in the colleges, I always say that this collection that in our times we were having only two dresses and we were very happy because we want to make them clean, and the more emphasis of our parents or this thing on hygiene, on cleanliness. Now people are having jeans, then they will torn them and then they will use some chemicals so that they look fade, and so you are increasing your carbon footprint. So even if you are doing fashion, the fashion should be, I mean, I am not against fashion, but I am saying that you should see that how you can decrease your carbon footprint. That should be your one of the aim, I should say. Then you are going to school, use of paper. This is very important. How much you are wasting. You are using tiffin box. What type of plastic is this? Is it one time use or? So I think each and every aspect. And in case this awareness is, we start from the primary school and it will go to the colleges and up to the university, then half of the work is done. Then the second aspect is very important. That is policymakers. And I am saying again that in case you sensitize the top people, in case, and today there is no need to sensitize, Prime Minister or because uh, he is already sensitized. He's already, accepted Paris Agreement. The only thing is that the national plan which we have made, the policy which we have come out, I think the implementation part. And in that implementation, I think there is need to involve all the departments, education, the water resources, agriculture. there is no subject, there is no ministry which cannot be involved in this. The missions which we have made in the national plan, I think we tried to mainstream it, because it may be energy missions for solar, uh, it may be mission for green, in which we are talking about the forestry and having more green cover. It may be any mission you take. The government intention was that each and every department, each and every ministry should be involved in this process, so that we can achieve our goal. And India is much ahead, I should say, and intentions are very clear, from top to and today, in case you talk to even states, they understand their role, and each and every state is having a state plan. I'm working in Sikkim. I would like to give you example that Sikkim is one state, which is a model, which is a sort of example in the climate change. And you believe me that start with the top people, from chief minister, chief secretary, up to the lowermost functionary. They understand that what is, how climate change, or how the our carbon footprints can be decreased. And there are few examples I would like to give, and then, because I would like to listen to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, who is one of the, not national expert, but I will say international expert in climate change. And for him, it is a mission, I should say. It's not his job, but the way he is conducting it in the country, going to different states and making different centers, in these states. I think amazing work is being done by Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, and I'm very happy that he's with us in this workshop. I will say that two or three things which we have done, and that is given a sort of big coverage in the national media and even in international media. One in agriculture, this organic farming, and we have shown that how this organic farming can, the use of chemicals can be reduced, even the water consumption by the agriculture, because we know that 60%, 65% of total water is consumed by agriculture. And in case you have organic farming, it can be reduced substantially. And this water can be utilized for some other purpose, for industrialization, for urbanization, for drinking purpose, for other use. And because water is very precious, and one of the biggest impact of climate change will be on water resources. So organic farming in state, this is the first state which is going for organic farming, and it is highlighted by the Honorable Prime Minister. He has mentioned 3 or 4 times in the Parliament that we should learn from Sikkim. Second thing in agriculture is irrigation, and the irrigation facilities, which is created, that is amazing. Even drinking water for villages, the source of drinking water is springs. And in Sikkim, 2 districts, 40,000 springs were dried. So what we did is, with simple thing, with we educated people, asked them that you can do it, and when we explained to them that's your simple method, that you conserve water. So we make trenches in the forest land, collected water, and you will be amazed that some of the lakes were revived, 40,000 springs revived. And this is the problem in all Himalayan states. Today, Uttarakhand, they are facing lot of problem. Their villages, drinking water problem is there. And uh, I think they should learn from Sikkim. We have given this training to Nagaland. And Nagaland today, they are having, much better situation, than 2 or 3 years back, because they are also doing similar thing and reviving some of these streams. So I think the impact of climate change is visible. Start from Himalaya up to Kanyakumari, and it's not difficult. This is the right time when you can sensitize people. I'm working in disaster management, and I know that during the disaster, people are very sensitive. They can listen to you. In normal time, they will never listen. They have many other things to do. But I think when there is a situation like this, when 9 states are having floods, when we are, facing thunder, lightning, more than 200 people died, in 2 states, when there is cloud burst, and the series of cloud bursts. So I think the impact of climate change is visible, and we can educate not only our students, not only policymakers, but I think there is one sector which is very important, that is farmers, because the excessive use of chemicals, excessive use of fertilizers in some of these states, they have destroyed, their agro ecosystem, and they are facing, and they will pay the price, I tell you. Punjab, Haryana, UP, part of UP, they are paying price. The complete land is saline, and this land become dependent completely. It is just like sterile land. If you put fertilizer, it will give something. If you don't give anything, then there is a drought-like situation. So I think farmer is one sector which should be sensitized in climate change. They should know that in Indian condition, what is the best thing to grow. And in every state, you go to Maharashtra and they are growing sugarcane. You go to Rajasthan, they are growing sugarcane. So drought prone area where the water scarcity is there, in case we have this kind of cropping system, in case we have Indira Gandhi Canal or something, I think we should make best use of this water resources, utilize it in such a way so that more and more farmers can use it. And but instead of that, what we are doing it, we are doing in farming, we are using a lot of fertilizer and use of water, and so I think that type of agriculture in forestry sector, in mining sector, in I think there is absolutely no sector where climate change or climate change adaptation, or we should not sensitize them that what should be done and how it should be done. I think a great initiative is started by Professor Anil Gupta. And as I am saying, because his background is environment, so he wants to make it, environment in the central place, climate change, in the central place, and educate people that how, big disasters can be avoided in case you know the climate change, the science of climate change, the science, climate change adaptation, uh, and so on and so forth. The last word is that today, uh, World Bank is saying 2% of GDP is going in the natural disasters, but I am saying that it is much more than that. And if you are saying the cumulative thing, it is much more than 2% of GDP. So I think, and it is linked with climate change. So I think the there is a need of a very big program in climate change for different sectors, and this awareness should be for sectoral. In fact, this should be for farmers, this should be for foresters, this should be for academicians, this should be for different sectors. And the I compliment, science and technology, the capacity building program which they have started. This is giving dividends, and they are working in not only 1 or 2 states but in throughout the country, and trying to make few centers, try to make some database, etc. And this is giving results. My last point is that the today the glacial lakes, the whole Himalaya is having several hundreds, several thousand, glacial lakes, and these glacial lakes are increasing in volume. And so I think when we are creating awareness, I think people will easily understand that what can be done, to save these glaciers, and what can be done, to get drinking water, in the hills or that region. So separate programs, this kind of awareness programs for Himalayan region, for coastal region, for central India, and I think NIDM should take this initiative and conduct a series of programs on awareness. I stop here because I want to learn and I want to listen, the other friends, and I will be here, throughout the webinar. Thank you, and over to you, Thilis.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
Thanks for highlighting the
very important
needed
points that are
to
needed to
mainstream in the
mainstream
system.
in the system.
Uh,
I
I would
would
request
request
um, Ashish Panda.
Panda sir to Dr. Gupta for the special guest, sir. Over to you, Ashish sir.
Thank you, Philip. Am I audible, please?
Ye-
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I thank both the patrons of today's program for wonderful context in setting up the subject. It is rightly observed that climate science is not meant for scientific community only, and it needs to be popularized among the common masses at large scale in local languages and by addressing local climate issues. Professor Sharma, on the other hand, mentioned that the government is trying to mainstream climate science in its developmental agenda. There is still room for improving as far as implementation part is concerned. There is also a need to bring this science in school curriculum as well. Both the patterns agreed that unless we follow the lab to land approach, unless we educate the local community with respect to climate science knowledge, they believe we are failing in our duties to prepare them for a future climate disaster resilient society. Now, to start the technical session of this program, I feel myself privileged in getting the opportunity to introduce Honorable Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, who is advisor and head in the Department of Science and Technology, who is going to share today's technical session for us. Sir is MSc in Physics from Lucknow University and Tech from IIT Kanpur, PhD in Atmospheric Sciences from IIT Delhi. Sir worked in India Meteorological Department during 1985 to 1994 as a meteorologist, and then joined National Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting (DST) to work at various levels until 2006. Thereafter, became advisor and scientist. During 2007 to 9, Sir has worked as advisor to the Union Minister for Science and Technology and Earth Sciences. Gupta also worked as head climate change programs at the DST and coordinated two very important national missions. The first one was National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem. The other one was National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change. Dr. Akhilesh Gupta worked as Secretary BBC also during November 2012 to November 2013. He has been a weather forecaster par excellence, published over 100 research papers on various national and international journals. He has also been managing editor of the Indian Meteorological Society for 4 years and has been author and editor of 3 books. Dr. Gupta received elite honoris causa from Jagadguru Rama Bhadracharya Handicap University in 2013. Dr. Gupta is also fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineering, fellow of Indian Meteorological Society, and honorary professor of the MIT University of Rajasthan. Such specialization includes tropical cyclone prediction, weather forecasting, location-specific weather forecasts, including those for the mountainous regions, climate change, higher education sector, etc. We are honored with your benign presence, sir, and I will request you now to preside over the technical session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and I think let me start with thanking NIDM for having invited me. So, Major General Vindal, Professor V.K. Sharma ji, distinguished
panelists, consequent attendees, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everybody. I think this is a subject which is, in fact, very important, and I must congratulate Professor Gupta for organizing this very important topic conference. And well, we have been talking about the natural disasters and its prediction, mitigation, and all those kind of components of disaster management. But the science communication of or dissemination of weather and climate information is basically in fact, it provides a kind of a big role in the process of disaster management. Let me, give a figure that 2% of the GDP is lost every year due to natural disaster. And as per the estimate, nearly 10% of that can be saved if we do a good weather forecasting and warning. And of course, the more important role is that is to give better awareness to people of the country. If you there are in fact instead, I think Dr. Sharma has already mentioned that in general the public at large remain unaware of the jargons that we use, and sometimes have no understanding as to how this thing happen. I'll give you an example. I work in cyclone warning at Chennai for several years, and I used to go for this campaigning to educate people. And I realized that people don't have clarity as to what is this tropical cyclone is. So very often they think that a tropical cyclone is like a missile. It will come and hit a person and destroy. They don't have the scale of the system in their mind. So a cyclone is 1,000-kilometer extent. So if it is crossing Vishakhapatnam, it will also impact the southern district of Ongole, Nellore, and also the northern districts of Odisha and West Bengal. That scale is not there in their mind. They think it is like, when Met Department says it is going to strike a place, they think, oh, they are safe because it is going to strike Vishakhapatnam. So I am sitting in Machilipatnam, I am safe. That is all wrong information that they have. Another very, and this is done by many journalists, very, I would say learned science journalists, right? Any kind of storm, severe storm, thunderstorm, or tornado hitting any place, they will say cyclone has come in that place. Now, there is a scale difference. There is a total impact difference between the cyclone and the tornado or the local severe storm. I think people, even journalists, they write, that such and such place cyclone has come. Another very common perception, and this is among the parliamentarian. I have had, I think, interaction with the parliamentarian, was a part of there was a parliamentary committee on climate change. I made a presentation to them. Very common perception and prevalent, in fact, everywhere, that, in India, in the Himalayan region, these glaciers are receding, and we are shortly going to have no water in our river. True that glaciers are receding, True that it might make some impact, but the scale of that impact is much lower than the perceived idea. I'll give you idea. 97% of the glaciers in the Indian Himalayan region have area less than 2 kilometers, 2 square kilometer. That's the 97% of these glaciers are there. Only 3% of the glaciers have area larger than. But you know what a interesting thing is that these 3% of glaciers occupy nearly 75% of the area in the Himalayan region. Glaciers are receding, no doubt about it, but there are all those small sized glaciers, that one whose magnitude or area magnitude is less than 2 kilometers square. Large glaciers are not receding as rapidly as it is being projected. Another very important thing, only about 8% of the glacial water goes into the perennial rivers like Ganga and Yamuna. And so large amount of the river flow in the rivers originating from Himalaya from the fresh snow and not from the permanent. So these are all misconceptions that people have. I think, and we are to be blamed that we are not able to, tell people, anything. Uh, I think what a irony we have in India that I don't know how many people have seen the report brought out by the National Geographic and Global Scan some time back, saying that India and Brazil are occupying number one position in terms of sustainability. In all the components, 75 parameters that were chosen to assess 19 countries, including US and others, found that India is, at the top in the world in terms of sustainability, and the US is at the bottom, worst among all. But we see the irony in terms of impact of the weather and climate extremes. We are the worst, one of the worst. So we, while doing as a society, as a government, doing wonderful job to have India's position as number one in the sustainability, the natural resources which impact us makes us the worst in terms of impact. So that means India has to do a lot. And how we can do it? The one way is to create better awareness. I think we have had good, traditionally India has, I think, one of the first in the world to start the early warning systems as early as in 19th century. And the India Meteorological Department has done tremendous work in this area, especially in the area of cyclone warning. We are, leader in the world. But I think the time has come that we need to work on multi-hazard warning system, and this is doable. And by using all advanced disruptive technology, that is AI, IoT, machine learning, and all these new tools that we have, I think IND must, work on this thing. I would like to say that, this awareness has, in fact, has made impact. There is a live example I will give how awareness has impacted the overall impact on reducing the loss of life and also loss of property. I think I would like to name one person, I think, who has done tremendous job in this thing, and that is Dr. Sanjay Srivastava. So the kind of work that he and his association has done in mitigating the impact due to lightning is something very outstanding. I think all of you must learn from what he has done. And there is a book, I understand there is a book being released on the impact. So, very common thing that he has done, small little thing that makes difference, awareness for. Just one example. People think that there is a thunderstorm taking place in a village. People think that, just go and take shelter beneath a tree. That will save. Actually, it is just other way around. So the trees are the first victim. The lightning will fall on trees, and the people will die who are taking shelter beneath it. So these small little awareness, tips will make a lot of difference. It has made a difference, and I compliment him. I think I would like to mention that also there is a high time. And government, I am part of the government, but I say with conviction, and this is, of course, in my personal capacity, I would say. Now, here's the time that for this to do, the government must join hand with the private NGOs and the civil society organizations. Government alone cannot do it. It is not possible for government to do it. I think NGOs and civil society organizations are doing wonderful work. We must take help from them. It is a win-win situation for all of us. Instead of working in competition, let us work in cooperation. And this will really going to, and especially in the area. Just last point I would mention, and then I will close that I think right now we are in fact formulating a science and technology innovation policy for the country, and being the head of the policy formulation process, let me mention here that the coming science and technology policy is going to highlight the role of science communication and public awareness in a big way. And we are sort of, contemplating that we must bring out a policy direction for everybody. And so we are likely to introduce, I don't know what is the final thing, but we are likely to introduce a policy prescription that every entity in government should have a public awareness wing. This is not just to address disaster, but for overall science communication, there is a need for so the uh, relevance and importance of science communication is going to be highlighted in this policy. With that, I thank once again NIDM for having invited me. I have another meeting to attend, so I will please be excused for leaving the meeting in between. And once again, I thank Major General Grindal for having invited me, and everybody else for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing informations with us. I would like to request Dr. Bhan to share his expertise with us on the theme of today's course. Dr. Bhan has joined a meteorologist in the year 90 and has been working in the department in different capacities, fields of forecasting, human resource development, and applications such as agrometeorology, hydrometeorology, power and health sector applications. He established the location weather information and forecast system in the country during the Commonwealth Games 2010 New Delhi. He was instrumental in establishing weather services for power sector and a countrywide heat health early warning system in India through multi-stakeholder interactions. He has more than 80 research papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and has authored a book and has also presented more than 20 papers in various national and international symposium in India and abroad. Three of his papers have won the Best Paper Award. He was also awarded the Certificate of Merit by Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government in 2014 for his significant contributions in the field.
Now, basically, this climate science webinar being organized by NIDM is a matter of applaud to NIDM and the efforts being made by Dr. Anil Gupta. Basically, climate information is very vital, and more vital is what information is there and what are the timings. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
So I am from Central Water Commission, and in India, this climate parameters are measured and made public by IMD, Mausam Vibhag, and other departments or the agencies, they utilize that information. Now, if we want to make it more public, so we have to make a review, see what should be our presentation of various formats, of various forms, various warnings, so that the public understand them very easily. They may be scientific for scientific users, and there may be very broad type for the public users. See this, when we are talking of the climate change, that means everything has become uncertain. There are more uncertainties added nowadays. When the uncertainties are more, we have to be more prepared to combat the risk. Therefore, we have to prepare our entire population to meet the challenge. And that preparation we can start right from the school days. So we popularize the climate science and introduce various programs in the curriculums of the schools so that our young students, they develop the interest, and then they take the challenge when they are grown up. Dr. Bhan was speaking that government alone cannot do all the things. This is very well taken, because now public has to participate. So we have to think of creating more awareness, and awareness in the form which is acceptable and understandable by the public. That means in the easiest form. See, Indian geography, we have got a very typical terrain. We are having floods at one hand and we are having droughts on the other hand. So we have to deal them very carefully and in a very scientific manner. We in Central Water Commission have been issuing flood forecast, which is utilized by various state governments and other agencies to firm up their programs for evacuation of the people. And the Central Water Commission has been updating its network and the model for analyzing the data. So collection of data and its analysis as well as its dissemination, they are the important aspects. And I would only convey that whatever modernization we are having, we should have the public or the people's participation in a larger manner. See, Dr. Bhan was also saying that we remember the disasters when they occur and we keep quiet when they are not there. So that is also with the floods. So we just try to explore about floods in the month of July when the water is there and we see news in the TV. So I mean to say all around the year we make the efforts, we try to make the preparations very well. Our capacity building with the state government officers is also a must. See, IMD is issuing long range forecast and that forecast can be utilized by many agencies involved, and we can have proper coordinated efforts with the IMD also. So that is regarding the flood management, because every effort is required from all directions in a very integrated manner. My department, Central Water Commission, is having more than 300 flood forecasting stations where we issue the forecast whenever water in a river reaches or exceeds a well defined warning level, and we are adding value to our forecast systems. Central Water Commission is also going for inundation forecasting, which will be easily understood by the public because it will give information about a specific area which is likely to be submerged, and then the state governments can have their evacuation programs. So it will strengthen the disaster support system. Along with this, I think we also need to take a relook over the constitutional provisions where it is mentioned that flood management is a state responsibility So we should review when it was state responsibility, the constitution was enacted in 1950. So what the states have done regarding this responsibility and what they are doing. That means the entire process needs a thorough review. And in case some modifications are required, so they can be thought of. See, nowadays the season for floods has started. I will also say that adaptation to floods should be seen as one of the measures, because what is happening, we see a lot of encroachment in the way of the rivers. Whenever heavy water comes, it carries away all those attachments which are inside the river. The Central Water Commission way back in 1975 had circulated the Floodplain Zoning Bill, which is yet to be implemented by the state governments. Under this bill, the floodplains are to be zoned as per the degree of the flood, and then different various type of the buildings can be planned there so that the risk is minimized. In the very floodplains, we can thought of houses which are on stilts so that the river water is passed very easily below them, and their ground floor remains vacant. So there are certain measures see, for flood management. This structural and non-structural measures are already listed, but the emphasis so far has been on the structural measures, and there is less emphasis on the non-structural measures. So we have to change our mind that we have to take up the non-structural measures also, just like warning systems and all. Because structural measures alone cannot be sufficient. So it is my just word that an integrated approach by all the agencies involved under the umbrella of NDMA can prove to be useful in mitigating the flood damage. And a robust systems for analysis and data collection of the climate changes is also a must. So with this I will close. Thank you, Professor Anil Gupta, for inviting me.
Thank you. Now we can move to Dr. Bhanu.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
please, Tilas, can you,
yes, I will listen now.
Yeah,
Daniel, good can I start?
Sir,
Good?
answer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can you bring the
Okay, you are now the present. It seems you have now enabled me. Okay. Okay, Tilas. I think now I'm enabled.
yes.
Yeah, Siddharth. Good morning again, and thank you, NIDM. I've kept the topic for today's very relevant webinar on climate science popularization for public safety. So well thought of by Professor Anil Gupta. And the topic I have kept for myself, the user awareness in climate science for public safety. And to be lucky on my part, all the opening panelists, the esteemed panel in, comprising of Professor Sharma, Dr. Claes, and the ED, Professor Major General M.K. Bansal, VSM, all three highlighted the importance how the awareness in the field of weather and climate sciences can help in public safety, can help make the economy better. So we go from here, and broadly we would discuss today the weather and climate services being provided by IMD in very brief. What are the climate information needed for public safety, how the hazards and impacts are increasing, and the awareness. Why do we need it, how and when, and for whom and by whom. And some of the recent efforts are being done towards increasing the awareness among the public. And these are the services of the India Meteorological Department. Almost all sectors of economy and human activity, though they are impacted, and most of them are being served by the weather services. Some of them through general weather forecast, and some of them for very specialized products for these sectors. So almost all activities are covered. And if anything is there, we are ready to extend our services to whatever sector they are willing. So what are the information we need for public safety? Broadly, we put it in time scale. We need past weather, which we call the climatological information. That is to assess the possible hazards. I'm not talking about the risk at this stage. I'm just confining myself to the hazards. So what are the possible hazards at a place in a given season? It purely can be determined if we analyze the historical data. We can assess the hazard possibility over an area which is available. I come to that. What are the data available in the present weather for assessing the current hazards, and the future, which includes the weather forecast and warnings for any imminent hazards which is about to impact us. And a comprehensive public safety framework requires that we have proper inputs from all the timescales. And of course, this is in addition to other components of disaster management, of course. Very brief, I try to summarize in just one slide what the past, present, and future weather and climate information we are from IMD providing. We have a observation network of about 550 observatories, 3,500 reporting rain gauge stations. Radiation stations are at 45 places in the country. We have 40 air quality weather stations. Automatic weather stations are 675, and they're also augmented by additional network of 1,350 automatic rain gauges. And many more, I could not include it in this slide. And earlier there was a problem that data of only the point data were available. To overcome that in the last few years, the India Meteorological Department has come up with a graded rainfall data, rainfall at 25 kilometer resolution and temperature 50 kilometer resolution from 1951 onwards. And those data, I'm happy to share that those data are now freely available at IMD website. The two links given there, the top first one here is for any general data. You can acquisition the data here. And the lower link is for the graded data, which is now available on IMD website, and it can be downloaded by anybody for further analysis. We make the current weather data available at 3-hour interval of some of the observatories and half-hour interval for some others, from surface observatories and airport met offices, automatic weather stations, and ARGs. And the satellite and Doppler weather radars we provided at every 15 and 10 minutes. That is the time frequency we provide the data. And the spectrum of weather forecast includes the forecast from sub-city scale to regional scale in spatial matters, and from a few hours ahead to the seasonal forecast in the time scales are provided by IMD. And it is these forecasts and warnings which play an important role in the immediate actions to be taken for any public safety. The forecast, of course, have to be considered, but they have to be properly blended with historical information to assess the impacts, what impact the forecast could have over a particular area in a particular season. Analysis of historical information, which is available now on AMD website, helps us to take actions. And why we need to be more aware, it was emphasized in the opening session by all the eminent panelists, that the hazards are increasing. The weather extreme events are increasing under a climate change scenario, and therefore associated risks are also increasing. And we also therefore need to increase the level of our awareness and the level of preparedness. Some of the panels here, if you see, the heavier rainfall events in the country are on the increase, and the lower rainfall events are going down. So some say the Indian rainfall is not changing much. Yes, of course, it is not. The total seasonal rainfall remains stable over a period, except some cyclicity. But within that, the heavier rainfall events are becoming more, and lower rainfall events are going down. So that means more extreme rains, more floods, and more disruption to the public. And these events are not so well distributed across the country. There are areas where preferred increase is the central parts of the country here and the eastern parts, where the heavier events are increasing more. And this is the panel, the heat waves are also increasing. And we have come out with the future projections recently. I'm not showing it here. That also shows that in future, these extreme events are going to increase further. And therefore, if the hazards are increasing, I'm sure the risks will also increase. Those has to be assessed in light of the recently released climate assessment by India. And some of the studies here, the top panel is by Singh and Singh, is published in Meteorological Applications. These are the annual number of deaths per million and total due to lightning. So it's a steady increase is there. That's due to lightning. And the lower panel is number of district-wise deaths in Bihar over last 4 years due to lightning. I don't have permission from the generator of this diagram to show the details, but the bluer colors show more numbers. So that shows that southern parts of Bihar are more vulnerable to lightning. I was initially, before seeing that, was under impression that northern parts adjoining the Himalayas are more vulnerable. But the data shows it's the southern parts which are more impacted, and therefore the awareness efforts need to concentrate more on those areas compared to others. So others also need it, but we can better focus on those areas. So this kind of analysis based on historical data helps us in creating awareness among the public and designing the programs of disaster management in the country. Coming next, this is the number of deaths due to heat wave from here 1992 onwards up to 2015. There was a constant rise, and after that there is a decline 16 onwards. We'll come to that probably later. This is here where the intervention started. So that's a very good example how the interventions can help reduce the mortality. So here NDM came into picture. They devised the national guidelines. The state came up with their heat action plans. And the coordinated actions, including those of IMD, has led to considerable reduction in number of heat-related deaths. This year, so far, the reported figures has been 4. So considerable success. And other impacts, we see the economic losses by decades and by hazard type reported by the World Meteorological Organization. It's on increase constantly. And most of that come from the floods and, of course, storms. And in terms of the impacts and the costs, this is one of the data for the United States, which compiled the 273 weather and climate disasters since 1980, each having a cost exceeding $1 billion. This does not include the smaller hazards. And if you see the decadal, from 1980 to 89, then 90 to 99, with every decade, the number of deaths are increasing, the costs are increasing. And last 5 years, it's even much more like that. I really do not have this kind of numbers for India at the moment, but we can safely assume the trend would be similar. So we need to enhance our efforts towards educating the public more, making them more aware of the impacts and what are actions to be taken by them. So, that emphasizes the need for greater awareness, on which NIDM is emphasizing upon. And awareness, of course, we all know is a basis for public safety. And it is one of the, during entire awareness program, weather and climate, it's one input among the many. which also includes all the stakeholders, because the stakes are varying with the stakeholders. The complexities of coordination will be there with, if you have the multiple stakeholders, and there are added stressors and varying stressors. Climate variability is increasing. So every year, the awareness may have to include something new. Local vulnerability is increasing because of new structures coming up. And maybe if the operating procedures and policies are going to change over time. So the awareness has to include these aspects also, and it has to be a continued process. And in the awareness portion of weather and climate, we have also to see weather and climate as a natural resource, which can be taken benefit of. So we need the seasonal characterization of a place, which has been done thoroughly by IMD, and these characterizations are available freely. And the different sectors of economy have to plan their operations accordingly and take advantages of the better weather if it prevails in the forecast. And for publics, coming to public safety, it's awareness of severe weather events which needs to be taken. When do the events normally occur in my area? What are the areas like we see in Bihar, where do they occur more frequently and with more severity? And what are the events which could impact an area? That would include thunderstorms, lightning, hail, cyclonic storms, flooding, floods, heat and cold. So the characterization of the severe weather events over an area is important. And of course, the forecast and warnings, they have to be updated. They have to be contextual. We are making them contextual for different users. And since from last year in a small manner and this year in better coordinated manner, we have made the warnings particularly impact-based in discussion with NDMA and some of the states. We also convey the possible impacts that the forecast and warnings could have on different sectors and what actions the public is required to take. Though at finer scale, the states can further add to these. And who are the stakeholders in the awareness program? The intermediaries, which play very important, which includes the planners, the government sector, the disaster management setup entirely, including a lead institute like NIDM, the NDMA, SDMAs, the non-governmental organizations and self-help groups, and educational institutes. I'll come in bit detail into that. They have tremendous role to play in creating awareness. The media has to be made more aware. The media reporting has increased tremendously. Most of the reporting, I feel, is done after the disaster has happened. Educating the users about the imminent hazards and the possible actions to be taken to avoid that. That part is not so well taken up by media, except in some cases like cyclones. So media needs to be further made aware of. And of course, the end users. It has to be public at the individual level, at the community level, and the different businesses and activities. They have to be made aware of the impacts and actions to be taken by them. And what we need to convey, what are the forecasts? We have to make them aware about where do they get the forecast, their availability, their frequency, their validity, how the forecast is. It's very important to know the validity of the forecast and its update cycle. Because forecasts normally what they say are perishable products. They should be consumed fresh. We should not be using old forecasts. So users have to be made aware of the update cycles and validity and severity associated with the warnings. They have to be conveyed the risks and impacts along with the warnings so that they can take the actions of developing emergency plans and executing those plans for individuals, for community, and for businesses. And who does the awareness? The National Weather Service? Yes, it does. The India Meteorological Department, but is it alone enough? I honestly feel it is not. Other organizations of the country have to come in, and some of them are already there. The disaster management setup of the country, including NDMA, NIDM. It's not written there, but of course it's implied for any human resource development. The lead agency, the center of excellence in the country is NIDM. The state disaster management authorities, district authorities, and some of the states, one or two, have even block level DDMs. They are participating in that. The user agency and the departments, of course, have to chip in for creating awareness. Educational institutes, the tremendous role, NGOs and self-help groups. Some of the current efforts which we have put in place in IMD recently we have tried to make the forecasting practice, particularly the warnings. We have initiated a system of conveying the impacts associated with different severe weather events and what are the actions to be taken. Social media is being made use of in case of alerts, and now we have started producing a weekly weather video where we give the details of last week's weather and the weather in the following weeks. It's available on ANVI website and other social media platforms. And we do pre-consultation, pre-season consultations with various stakeholders at national and also at the state levels on what is the system of weather forecast we have that includes again dissemination mechanism and what could be the possible severe weather events in the area during coming season. We organize periodic user workshop at the state levels with different user groups. Farmers awareness programs are organized in some of the cases up to village level. That's where we have been able to reach the grassroots level. And then we produce some films and pamphlets and AMD activities. The fundings from, because finance is an important part and some of the discussions are held around that who would fund what. So funding for farmers awareness programs and users workshop is provided by IMD. And the Ministry of Earth Sciences also provisions for providing funds if we want to go for an awareness program and outreach program under their capacity building program. And this, the bottom is given the website from where we can access the website of MOS. And some of the users can take benefit of that efforts. And these are some of the pictures of farmers awareness program created right up to village level. And this is the data right now I have from 1st June to 15th of May. 1,453 programs were organized across the country. I think it's a good number given that about 40% of the period fall in the pandemic period. So it's a part of our program for making farmers awareness of the use of weather forecast and information agriculture. But because farmer safety is an integral part of overall farmers welfare program, so awareness on extreme weather events and their impacts and safety of the farmers is also created through these programs. And this program, the numbers are very impressive if you see the pandemic also. I would like to emphasize, and the NIDM particularly to take note of this, that part of this success I feel has been because we have a formal program. So we need to have such formal programs with appropriate funding for other sectors of economy also. And who does it? That's a matter of debate, which we can discuss it separately. So part of success goes because there are funds available and a formal programs there. And it has continued through the pandemic. I'm happy to state that some of the districts are organizing even during this time. And the apps of Damini and Meghdut, which help in public safety, are popularized through these programs. And NDMA, of course, is in a big way in creating awareness through their short films, jingles, pamphlets, and other IEC materials, do's and don'ts. And they hold discussion at state and national levels, and they make use of social media. Their programs are really very impressive, and they are there in social media. And the NIDM, of course, is one of the premier institute for human resource development and creating awareness in the country. State Institute of Disaster Management, some of them are active. NGOs, of course, are there. And these are the efforts of the state. They come out with their own material. The first two are here in Gujarati regarding heat by the government of Gujarat and Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. This is Bihar State Disaster Management Authority, how to protect yourself from cold. This is Beat the Heat is from NCDC, the National Center for Disease Control. This is Government of India organization. These are the efforts of Odisha in the last. And some of the states are also creating awareness and have created applications, particularly for thunderstorm and lightning. That includes Satark from Odisha, Indrabhajan from Bihar, PS Weather of Telangana, and Megh Sandesha is from Karnataka. So states are also chipping in. Some of the states are more active, some are not that active, but they are just coming. More organized efforts, of course, are always better and they are needed. And towards the end, if I can summarize, enhancing public safety against severe weather events requires to enhance user awareness, user understanding, and the faith of the user. That also is very important. User must be aware of the services available and how they can access those services. User need to understand the products. In the morning, Professor Sharma emphasized that they should be in understandable way. Highly scientific content may not be very much appreciated by the end users, and they may not be able to take the actions which are required. So they have to be in user understandable way. Language has to be concise, and they should know the meanings of the meteorological terms used and what actions are to be taken by them, seeing those forecasts. And the user, of course, the faith have to be there. And in the morning, it was emphasized the forecast accuracy has improved. So user faith also, I'm sure, has increased in the forecast and warnings of the country. And this needs a coordinated efforts at all levels. And if you see the awareness, I say the impacts are showing effort. The number of deaths associated with cyclones have come down to double figures from tens of thousands not many years ago. Number of heat wave related deaths and lightning related deaths are also going down. So the awareness and efforts do have an impact on our safety of the public. That's important to know that. And who does the awareness program? Is the National Meteorological Service alone, which is the IMD in our case, perhaps is not enough. We need help of other departments and other setup, which are administration and DM setup at the state and district level, public representatives up to the block and panchayat pramukhs. Those are important, should be an important part of education and awareness program. Academic system, though the NCERT at different levels have some components of disaster management and meteorology, but we further need a actionable input into academic system. What to be done on what? They are more on awareness and what I could guess, less on the actions. So they need to be looked into again. NGOs of course have to chip in, and media, as I told, media has to be made aware of making their program more contextual. So that awareness program has also to be considered for media. And we have to piggyback upon other programs of the government. Many ministries have them. I'll mention only two of the Department of Science and Technology, the national mission, two of the 10 national missions of the Prime Minister being led by Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, who was there in the opening session, and they have done some tremendous amount of awareness through their programs. And the National Council for Science and Technology Communication is also in that business. And the opening program, Dr. Gupta told that they are coming with science communication policy. I think we have to make utilize of those programs for creating awareness about severe weather events, and for whom these programs need to be organized. Awareness for the public representatives, of course, the decision makers, business, all type of the activities, different sectors of economy. They need to be made aware of the possible impacts and how they can minimize the impacts in case of any severe weather events. And all levels and streams of education, starting from primary level, including the Anganwadis. If we can train the teacher and the children, I think they will take the education back home, and many more can be trained through them. Medical education and hospital administration system. The National Program of Climate Change and Human Health now has a component climate resilient hospital system. But I had to look into that. It's more concentrated towards the greening of the buildings and climate resilience, that kind of climate resilience. That of course is important, but preparing our hospital system for any imminent disaster which is expected in that area in terms of infrastructure, in terms of manpower is important. That has to be part of national awareness. And over the last 2 days after Dr. Gupta gave me this responsibility, through the internet, I tried to search how much disaster management, particularly hydrometeorological disasters, are included in the curricula of our medical sciences. I did not find much on the Medical Council of India and individual medical colleges curriculum. That I very strongly feel they need to be educated, because they are among the first of the responders in case of any climate disaster. So they need to be made more aware of, formally and informally in both ways. I think I will stop here. I given some of thoughts, we can hold a different discussion on all these aspects. With I request Professor Gupta to kindly consider for any future. Thank you very much, and I again thank NIDM Professor Anil Gupta to give me this support. Thank you very much.
Presentation and highlighting IMD and after and those efforts after popularization of climate extreme weather events. Much, sir. The research issue in climate change, and water resources. She has masters and ecology and environment.
तिनले साहब की आवाज नहीं आ रही क्लियर. Your voice is not coming. Unless your voice is not coming. हाँ हाँ अभी अभी आ रही है आवाज, बताइए. Over to Swati. Swati ji.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings to all dignitaries. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in this very relevant topic for the day. Today, many people have spoken and I've learned a lot and heard a lot. So I'll start. Most of the government efforts were summarized by Dr. Bhan in his presentation already. So I would like to focus more on the user what would be the user approach, like how to popularize within the population in India. So if you see mostly the climate change issues or climate change related works, awareness, everything has been more top down. Basically it has not basically the government things, and we try to do awareness programs, create apps, and we try people to be more aware and they start using. We expect that information is generated from the top, and then we try to disseminate it across the society, the users, the people who are staying in more hazard prone areas, like we give yearly warning and all that, and we have achieved a great but a lot of things. But it is more, you know, it's more a top down approach where we enforce things on people. We want them to do, to listen to us, to, you know, without really understanding maybe sometimes. So rightly pointed by Dr. Van, we need to create more user awareness, user understanding, and user faith. These three are going to be the main components if we want to popularize climate science in the masses in India. So if you see some of the good environmental movements which have been very popular, like say for instance the Chipko movement, which was for conservation of forests, it was started by the people. It was initiated by the people, which made it more, more. They had ownership of the entire program of the movement. So presently, if you see certain things like for air pollution, for instance, we have introduced odd and even schemes. Now, in that, uh, am I audible? Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Swati. Yes,
Yes.
yes, you're
Yes.
audible. Yes.
Yes. So when we think, when we try to say, for instance, introduce a odd and even scheme, which is aimed to address at reducing air pollution, we often see a lot of people objecting to it. So if you really realize that it's not the effort by the government or the people as such, but people are not taking the ownership of whatever programs we are doing for climate change, reducing air pollution or addressing GHG emissions. Or it's more of a enforcement. It's like they're forced to do certain things. But instead, we have to move towards enabling people to take these efforts on their own. There should be their own initiatives. Why can't they themselves, when it is having heavy air pollution we are all facing, why can't people opt not to take the car but instead walk? So somewhere we have to start the process of enabling people rather than trying to enforce things. Secondly, because we are having more a government based approach, we are also not seeing much innovations in terms of collecting data or disseminating climate data. So if there was this program which was launched after 2015 COP21, the Paris Agreement, when it was adopted, one small program called CREW, which is basically climate risk and early warning systems. And it was basically the least developed countries around the world were given funding to develop their own early warning systems and dissemination systems. So given the funding, the small amount of funding was given to them, and they were able to innovate a lot of things. Like for instance, in Afghanistan, they use 3D printers as modified 3D printers to collect climate data. The similar way in Republic of Niger, women formed a self-help group where they helped in dissemination of early warning systems, early warning messages, which reduced a lot of risk among the communities. Similarly, if you see, we need to engage citizens more. For instance, if you see, there is something called a Earth Day, which was celebrated in 1917. It started as a movement, but later on, today, as of now, it has created more interactive data crunching projects, which enables people all across the world to collect data and to comment on their own local environment. For instance, they have two such projects. One is on plastics, like how the plastics are being sent across and how is it distributed across the countries, and also about air pollution. So such things would also involve the public more. It will engage people more, and we can also at the same time increase our base. India is a big country. We everywhere we cannot set up climate all weather stations. So somewhere we have to decentralize, and somewhere you have to give it back to people, to have more participation, to have more involvement and more engagement. So in India also we have a lot of citizen journalists, and who are the first, actually you get the first pictures of any disasters over the social media, which are being shared by citizens themselves. So that kind of thing can be formalized, channelized to bring out a better science popularization that can be used as a means to popularize science better. Secondly, when it comes to early warning, we have seen early warning being very successful. Say, for instance, in Odisha, take the case of Odisha, where people do comply to early warnings. They respond easily to evacuations, which is not so common in developed countries like in Australia or UK. That is because they themselves are staying in that and they are aware. So it's basically they understand the issues that will come forth if they are not adhering to the early warnings. So, but somewhere we need to still simplify our communications in climate change. Like how Dr. Akhilesh Gupta also pointed out, that the science communication has to be simplified, as well as there has to be a standard protocol of how you communicate. You may we tend to use more jargons, which needs to be more user friendly. And of course, India is a place of many languages, so you have to include vernacular languages, and there has to be a template, proper template for communication, a standard communication. This one of the best case studies for this is the Australian bushfire. In Australian bushfire, which in after 2008, which was very bad for Australia, a lot of forest was destroyed. They developed a standardized means of communication, some templates according to the disasters, as the varying intensity of forest fires, which helped actually in a lot of evacuation in the last forest fire 2019 bushfires, Australian bushfires. And this has to be practiced in more hazard prone states. And of course, we have to go multi hazard. It can be that we treat each hazard separately. Somewhere the communication has to be more multi hazard. And one more thing is the early warning has to be very crisp, clear, and standardized. Last but not the least, there should be increase, there has to be more open source data sources which have to be shared with the universities, with the education curriculum, that people can take up projects on climate that should build more capacity as well as interest in academicians, in scientists, in general citizens. And the same applies to the courses. I mean, if today I was supposed to study a course on climate science, where do I go? I mean, I have very limited options of studying a good climate science course. So that ultimately results we have very limited jobs, though application of climate science is multi-sectoral. In each sector, in each sector, we find applications of climate science, starting from agriculture, military, to everything. So why it's not a popular means of education, why we are not drawing more human resources to climate science based studies? So we have to think about that also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing. Professor Anil Kumar Gupta to share.
Thank you, Thinless. Someone has to allow me to present. I'm not allowed to present. I have to be enabled for presentation. Yes. Now I think I can share the content. Can you see my present PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so since we have some panelists also to listen, so I will take lesser than allocated time so that we can listen to our invited panelists also. So basically the theme that we have chosen for today's discourse is little different from the normal and conventional kind of discourses on climate change and meteorology, but it is very important as emphasized by the previous experts and speakers also. So moving to, if we look at the milestones in climate change studies, we have really moved ahead and very significantly, as the challenge was basically for collecting the weather data and then improving the data collection system and then processing system. If we look at this picture, so it is a journey of almost we can say 2 decades we have gone through in improving our weather information system. Now, the main challenge is that we have improved a lot in weather information system. As in India now, we are trying to start and go ahead for the nowcasting also. So we have long-term weather forecasting, medium range weather forecasting, and now we are trying to even start giving the real time information also. So now looking to this, when we have the technological potential, how this technological potential is being utilized and the benefits of this information is reaped by the people who are the key beneficiaries, uh, uh, and the people who are otherwise with a lack of early warning and information are getting affected by various extremes or stresses. As this picture shows, the concept of the greenhouse effect or the climate change. So simply explain that the difference between the normal course of greenhouse effect and the greenhouse effect under the anthropogenic influence that we call it climate change. What is important here that the focus of meteorological research and meteorological forecast has been greatly on that catastrophic events, and there in fact the communication, the focus of the climate communication has been on this, that if there are chances or risks of a catastrophic event taking place, then the communications are there to the disaster management system and the public authorities to plan for evacuation and other things. Whereas the impact of climate change is not only in terms of creating or aggravating hazard, but equally or rather more importantly, the climate change has influences on increasing the vulnerability. And whereas when we discuss about the origin of disasters, we all agree that it is the vulnerability that creates a hazard to turn into and being realized as a disaster. So what I want to convey here, that the lower order risks are equally important, or sometimes lower order risks are even more important. So that is also something where this climate information, climate weather information communication to the end user and to the end planner, that is important. If we say end planner, so even at the household level or the village level or the entrepreneur, for example, a vendor who is planning to put some additional things in his shop, or what kind of fruits he's going to sell, or what kind of work he's going to do for his livelihood. So can we think of connecting this weather information or climate information to help that vendor or help that villager or help that farmer to plan in advance, not only giving an early warning for 5 days, 6 days, or one day, 24 hours, or 1 hour. So I also question sometimes that when we say early warning, what is early? Is 3 months is early, or 2 months is early, or 1 day is early? So what really is early? Or even if we have the better forecast for 10 years, so is the 10 years or 5 years is early? So that is also a question. Now, climate information, now the huge demand is for downscaling that information, and that downscaling not only the climate information in terms of the weather products, but in terms of the impact products. So that is also important. So how we downscale the climate projections, so this is becoming an important dimension. So downscaling, and then developing capacities and interest of the users to utilize the downscaled information. So that is also something. Now the pandemic that we are currently into, this pandemic has also given an understanding that this pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, also has a lot of climate connections. And if we analyze climate connections, we find that it is not only the climatic extreme events or the catastrophic events which are important, but climate change and climatic parameters and variability affecting your resource support systems and functionality is also important dimension to convert a situation into a disaster or calamity kind of thing. So that is also important. Recently, we faced a devastating locust attack, and if we try to analyze, and a lot of scientific studies are going on, and I think very soon we will have more details on this, that the devastating locust attack this year also has very significant climate connection, and also the connection in background about the climatic extreme weather events, including the cyclones and dry weathers. And people are trying to analyze the correlation between the patterns, that how and why after 27 years such devastating pest attack has taken place. Now, if we look at the recent publications, also, I'm just quoting one publication, that there are number of good publications coming out on understanding the local phenomenon and local implications of geographical and ecological features on weather systems, and then looking into the anomalies. So if we look at this picture shows even the significant aberrations are the increases and decreases in the 3 days heavy rainfall events are 1 day heavy rainfall events, and we find that the forecast is indicating some serious level of things. It is also projecting 2020 to 59, and then 2060 to 2099. So almost next 80 years information we have. So, but how this information can be used by the planners at local level? For example, this is indicating about if we say that northeast coast are the Mahanadi region or the Indus region. So how the administrative entities in those geographical areas can use this information. So this is also important, because sometimes when the things are technical, people try to keep little distance, or there are also some kind of social distancing. So that we want to bridge that gap. Then look at this, the incidences of various diseases, including the disease called Japanese encephalitis, which has been noted as one of the important thing for the health sector resilience in our country also. So see, the climate connection is very significant for this kind of diseases also, and especially in the northeast Uttar Pradesh kind of area. Then climate and conflicts are also related. So many a times we find that the law and order, people dealing with law and order, people dealing with development issues, people dealing with managing conflicts and to re-establish peace in different areas, seldom look at the climate connections, or seldom look at the ecological connections of these conflicts. So conflicts have two-way impacts. The climate challenges give rise to conflicts, whereas the conflicts can also lead to the ecological devastation. So that is also an important dimension, that how climate information can help us understand, plan better for post-conflict development, or also in managing the conflicts. And even Sri Lanka, the North Province area has been a good example where environmental information has been used. Now, I am using this term. I don't know whether others have ever seen or used. I am using this information, social climatology. So I think we have to transform and bring a change in the meteorological study and the science of climate, and we have to think of a new discipline of social climatology, where the climate information coming from the top, from the scientists, from the climate projection models, and then also the feedback coming from the ground by the people, by the users. So how to bring the convergence top down and bottom up. So I think that two-way feedback mechanism can also help improve better utilization of climate and weather information system. So this is also what I wanted to say. Then looking at the public safety dimensions of climate, so the livelihoods are directly affected by the climatic variations and changes. For example, whether it's heat wave, whether it is a dust storm, wind, then so even when we talk of livelihood, usually we had some good studies about the livelihood getting affected when the livelihoods are in organized sector. For example, we can discuss, we have some good publications about the people who are into the farming sector, or who are into some specific sector, fisheries sector. But people who are like vendors, people who are like daily wagers, people who are like migrant laborers, people who are into a range of unorganized sectors, how their life and livelihoods are affected the climate variability and climate change, and then these weather events, there are very less studies. So that is also an issue. Then hygiene. Hygiene is a kind of a great input for your health and cleanliness. We have the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Can we think of that? What are the connections between the climatic events or climatic changes with the decomposition patterns of the garbage, and with the treatment facilities, and with the availability of water, clean water, so that the people can maintain hygiene and water sanitation. That what and that is a very important dimension that is also being emphasized by the agencies like UNICEF. Uh, and then certainly health. I also already referred to some of the epidemic incidences, including corona and Japanese encephalitis, and other diseases also having direct connections, including the cholera and these kind of things. Then food and nutrition, certainly very important. Now we are not talking much about food security, but nutritional security is still an important dimension. The same agriculture produce under different climatic regime would give you a different nutritional input, and that makes a significant role in ensuring the nutritional security in the country. Then certainly the transport disruption, communication disruption, that is a very important dimension for the public safety security system. Then emergencies, for example, the house collapse or the collapse and damage to infrastructure. Then the accidents that are caused by various climatic factors, including the winds. Earlier, winds were never considered as disaster, but Delhi itself faced wind. I think it was 4-5 years back, and then many of the trees got fallen on some of the cars, including the School of Public Planning and Architecture. Some cars got damaged. So these kind of things and now are emerging, which are of concern to all of us. Then affecting animal life. So not only the flora, it is also affecting fauna and not wildlife, and also the livestock. Then temperature extremes are important. Wind storms I already discussed. Then also affecting the economic system by influencing or by jeopardizing the ecosystem services, including agriculture, forests, plantation, lakes, ponds, etc. So these are some of the dimensions I referred to that the climate, the public safety is being affected because of the climatic parameters, and how we bring some kind of connectivity and understanding and awareness for ensuring safety. Then looking at the business, because economics is always very important, or I would say most important, because everything boils down to economics. So until unless we relate the importance of climate awareness to the economic activities and to the economic sustainability at the local level, probably the awareness would not be possible, and people will not be able to generate their interest. So people's aspirations for economic advancement has direct influence of climate variability and climate incidences. If we help connect those, probably we will have better audience and people will listen to these things, and we can help develop better utilization of data. So, for example, environmental emergencies are now becoming more and more frequent, new form of disasters. Earlier, heat wave, cold wave were not recognized disasters, urban floods were not recognized disasters. Now, these are the common disasters. Now we know hails, dust storms, and all kind of things, even air pollution. Now, business continuity management and business impact assessment for sustainable business strategies. So, this is a regime where we have the requirement of climate information to help us prepare better business sustainability for the future. Then how it is going to affect the raw materials, how it is going to affect the storage unit, transport, how the climatic variability and climate change affects the market fluctuations and supply chains, and also the returns in terms of money. And then also the corporate social responsibility activities, and then how the climate change can give us insights for planning better CSR activities. Then conflicts I also already discussed, but industries also face conflict because of the climatic reasons. For example, the drought condition can bring in conflict between the industry and the nearby people because the water becomes scarce. So these kind of things are also there. Then occupational challenges like absenteeism, accidents, performance issues, then compensation issues, and medical costs can also increase within the industries and corporate systems that can be aggravated because of the climatic reasons. Then damages and losses because of the extreme events, certainly. And not only the extreme events, even the lower order risk, the cracks can be generated in the structures, and later because of the vulnerability, that can face damage. Then technological risk. So we need to have more frequent review and modifications of our equipments, machineries, and the processes industries because of the climate change. For example, if the threshold was 42 degree for the highest temperature of May in some region, and now it is going to 46, certainly the safety system has to be reworked and reviewed. So these kind of things are also adding to additional cost within the industry. So now industries are also thinking and trying to utilize the climate information. For example, for storm preparedness, demand forecasting, these kind of things are also becoming a common buzzword within the industry and corporate system. This is drawn by us based on our experience of various pilot projects in India. So these are two means. Very important is understanding vulnerability and then working towards building resilience. Then coming to the last slides of my presentation today. So this is another experiment, another kind of a practical work that we have done. We evolved how climate information can be used for improving the disaster management plans to turn into climate smart disaster management plans. So this is an example of the Gorakhpur district 2014 that we published, and NIDM published it. Then this other kind of modules where the simple tools of statistics to use the climate information and the weather data, that how the rainfall data and the kind of extreme rainfall events can be used for simple the forecasting of the trends, so that even the district level officials can use this data using on just Microsoft Excel, MS Word Excel, MS Office Excel, and these kind of things we try to do. These are also available on my NIDM website also. And coming to this, that the climate information for all the three pillars are important for economic resilience, engineering, infrastructure resilience, and ecosystem base. These are some kind of publications where climate information has been integrated into disaster management. These are the UNICEF publications jointly with us. Some of the publications focusing on children's vulnerability in Bihar, then the city resilience published by NIDM. And these are other publications where the role of climate information has emphasized, giving the practical examples. Currently, we are implementing a 3 years program with the support of Department of Science and Technology, and here we are trying to see that how climate information can help integrate in better resilience and better developmental practices. So with this, I wish to thank all the panelists, and I think that we all are discussing on very important issue that will go a long way in our journey towards resilience. Over to you, Tinles.
Now we have a round of experience in government, business, from expert and entrepreneurship development, civil service to banking, finance to management functions. He held chief executive in MNC in Africa, and top management role in international and donor agencies. His contribution is acknowledged by the Best Practice Award for Social Housing and nomination for the Humphrey Fellowship and Raymond Marx Award. He made very like Foundation for Ecological Security, ERMA, National Security, IAGs at state and district level in India to promote harmonized the social business and from this social development incubate and United advisory body of BSDMA and pledge grant. So,
Hello, hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible. Firstly, sir,
Yeah.
you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm probably at the odd time before lunch. Trying to speak something which might sound pretty boring, but nevertheless, this being a digital media, digital webinar, and I think we'll have our own comfort zones to listen or not listen. Today, I couldn't join the program from the beginning. I could start listening to Dr. Gupta and Mr. Bhan and Swati and Professor Anil Gupta and all that much. I missed the deliberation from Major General Bindal, Professor Sharma, and the eminent people in the panel. This was because of some technical problem I faced at my end, probably. Let me share something, two components. One is little generic and then something very specific. On the climate front, the research data is very huge. It is very well understood by the climate scientists, but it has not been, unfortunately, simplified or demystified for the rest of the stakeholders. And this is one of the reasons that I envision is the reason for poor and slow adaptation process. We have been talking about climate change adaptation and all that. We have prepared plan and all that, but the implementation is slow, and many places people still try to find out what to do. And the same is the story also in disaster data. Hence, our continuing our disaster management focus has remained response centric, and we have still a lot of things to do on the development disaster nexus, development climate nexus, disaster climate nexus, and disaster climate and conflict nexus, and all this spectrum, this interconnected spectrum, that we have not been able to do enough. Although the government, I think the government of India has it in its policy declared some 10-15 years back that disaster management is an integral part of the development planning process. So we have not been able to do enough. So therefore, I try to find out that why it is happening. So then I start hypothesizing that the data management is very critical. Once I was talking to some administrators, they said that for planning we need some data information, and many times it is quantitative and qualitative. So this data is there. Then we need some pictures, how it looks like, what we are talking in terms of data and quality, how it really looks like in real life in pictures, and then how this process, it's a video kind of thing. So he says in a simple manner, if administrator is explained or a stakeholder is explained, this becomes very doable. So this is a process of demystification. That gentleman is a management professional and now is an administrator. He was trying to explain that this is the way we have to really demystify the technology, which is becoming more and more complex. So there, let me share about 4 components of this data management. One is data gathering, and then second is data processing, third is data dissemination, and the fourth is use of data for adaptation and risk reduction. We have uh, 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 not been able to do enough in all the fronts. I had the fortune of I was lucky to be a part of the large during my last 5 years of my professional life to lead a bilateral initiative of Government of India and Government of USA to work on the capacity building of our institute, disaster management institution. So I happen to work with 17 and odd Indian institutions and similar number of institutions in the United States, and try to see where things can be better, how things can be better, what are the new things can be brought from each other and all that. And few agreements have been signed between these two governments and all that happened. And let me say very proudly that one of the organizations in the forefront of today in our climate science and disaster management is our IMD stood out as the big gainer of that initiative. And today we are feeling proud, not only in India and we are all over the world. We are proud of our performance in terms of our forecasting, modeling, and in timeliness and decentralized approach that has happened. But still, what has happened at the institutional level is much more to happen by decentralizing it further and reaching out, connecting with the community and the community institution and civil society. That's how I used to talk about the, the decentralization of weather data collection. You densify the weather data collection system by putting very large number of automatic weather stations, maybe at his village level or at his panchayat level, things like that can happen. And running a automatic or maintaining a automatic weather station is not that complex. And some states like in Andhra Pradesh, it has been happening, and many other states they are also planning to do that. And that's going to change the complete the weather data collection system in a big way. And that level of data collection will be able to help the processing of data much better and creating better models and all that kind of thing. So those are some of the things that I wanted to say in a generic platform. Now let me come to very specific. This data management and data collection or data presentation can now become much impacting by use of technology. That's why I'm talking about a techno-humanitarian approach kind of thing. And the other day I was discussing this approach with the then Secretary of the Government of India in the Rural Development, and he said that what you are telling is going to change the whole the culture of development governance. So it's not only going to help only the disaster management, it's going to help the development governance as a whole. And this is what I'm going to say about use of unmanned aerial vehicles, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and Internet of Things. These technologies so fast improving, and so many people are working on this, so many institutions are working on it, and these things are going to completely change the character of our data collection, data management, data processing, and in the process, our planning can improve, our implementation can improve, our monitoring can improve. We can even see the impact in a much clearer and visible and understandable form. And therefore, let me share with you that in a pre-disaster, suppose you use, when I talk about these unmanned aerial vehicles, there is nothing but in common language, it's called drone. In the pre-disaster situation, if you fly a drone, you'll be able to see, suppose we are saying the flood is happening because of the breaches in the embankments. Suppose in the pre-flood season, if we fly a drone across along the sides of the embankments in the floodplain, we'll be able to know where the drones are weak, the embankments are weak, what are the potential breach points, we can see that. And we can see all of the high-rise locations where people can go and take shelter during a flood, kind of things that can, like that, there will be many more things. There are, you list out, it will go for more than 1 hour to list out the things. Only I gave an example of this embankment to bring assessment is important. Then during disaster, when you fly a drone, suppose the flood is taking place and fly a drone, you can see where these people are trapped, where the rescue services are needed, where the problems are much more, where the essential services are to be provided and all that. All these things can be done during this. And then as the flood recedes, you can do again fly a drone and do a comprehensive mapping to get something very important, that how this flood has damaged my environment. So that we call rapid environment impact assessment. There are protocols how we can do this. When you see that in this area, the flood has created this kind of environmental impact, and therefore the action can be initiated. And this is the way the embankment breach has taken place. The repair work can start. This is the how housing have been destroyed. This and this agriculture has been destroyed. My fishing yard is destroyed. My the other infrastructure, public and private infrastructure has been destroyed. So those things can be done, and not only pictures, you will be able to get in quantitative form. And therefore, I say that triangulation. There are four types of data, four types of image. I talk about triangulation. That is, the first is you get pre-disaster and post-disaster satellite imagery. You get very macro kind of image. Then you fly drone, you get micro image, and you get very extremely high resolution images you get, and then you can use the data analytics and convert these images into quantitative and qualitative data. Number of houses, number of boats, the area of the agriculture, the horticulture area, the mangrove, each element that called the feature, in their analysis they call it features. So each feature can be and analyzed in quantitative form, and the technology is fast advancing to do that. So applications, you can make pre-disaster, disaster surveillance, and a post-disaster assessment. That's going to change the whole landscape of the recovery planning and the preparedness planning, the mitigation measures. All these things can happen. But how do we do about it? The conceptually is all right. Then the idea. Then from idea you get into proof of concept, and then that proof of concept you'll do a trial, pilot in different contexts, in cyclone context, in flood context, in drought context. You will take these pilots and you create data and create evidences, and then it's good and it is helping me, and then let's go for scale up. But this is the continuum of the development and application of technology. But then how it done, how it is to be done. When you go and say that, okay, like we are working very heavily on this. I'm also working with several national organizations, international organizations, and all that, like the technology for agriculture, technology for water, and technology for health, and technology for risk reduction, climate change, and disaster management. So here we got, then we got the proof of concept. Then we said, okay, let's do some trials. Then when you go for trials, you ask the government, because the biggest beneficiary of this among the stakeholders, government is a key beneficiary, key stakeholder. So you go and talk to the government. Government always say where it has been done. When you are saying that it is a technological innovation, it's a management innovation, then why you are looking for where it has been done? If you are convinced about the logic and convinced about the proof of concept, you should take the risk of making a trial. You have to make an investment to make a trial. So government is very, very shy of dabbling with any innovation and all that, and they'll say that where it has been done. So government, you find a dead wall when you talk to the government, and then you talk to the private sector. Then this will create a opportunity for revenue, and this will change in the whole landscape, and then the private sector, that how much money I'm going to get after each day activity. So the profit, the bottom line starts getting counted and all that. They will wait for the scale to take place. When the ecosystem develops, matures, and there is a scale, that is the time they will like to enter. And till that time, they will continue to do their homework and all that kind of thing. So private sector also you get a dead wall. Who are the people, or who are the organizations who do it? They are only NGOs and these technology startups. They are very small entities, and they're very enthusiastic, very committed. They want to do, but their bandwidth is limited because they have very low resource base. So how these organizations can be resource supported, and the innovations can be tried, so that the change can come faster. I was trying to discuss this thing before the flood season in Bihar, and while discussion is going on, Bihar flood came, and the discussion stopped. I started talking to Assam, flood started. So like this, the ecosystem is not getting matured to encourage these innovations to take place, and getting to a stage that where it can be really replicated and take to scale and move into institutionalization. So this is the landscape on which we are there, and the people who are working in a very innovative way. Like I can give you example. Dr. Gupta was mentioning also today about the pioneering work on lighting done by our dear friend Sanjay. I'm also one of the persons who inspired the formation of that organization and that entity to work on this kind of incident. But everybody appreciates the work. But when it goes to talking about taking it to scale and getting into institutionalization, then there is no taker. And then how much? Sanjay is a very small person in terms of resource. He might have bigger, very wide knowledge, and the organization has got limited resource. They cannot do things in the whole country, and the lighting is an issue everywhere in the country. And so, therefore, there has to be an approach. There has to be a zeal. There has to be a willingness to support innovation and support these enthusiastic, technology-oriented individuals and organizations, so that things can become better. They are not going to bring the solution for the whole country, but solution can be created out of their initial innovation on ground. So that is the way I want to position my argument, that data is important, technology is important, data must be better gathered, better managed, better disseminated by use of technology, and there should be a ecosystem of willingness and positivity to encourage these technology innovations in climate change and disaster risk reduction and all that. Let me tell you with the final statement that today we are passing through a very difficult time of this COVID coronavirus, and no sooner you will come out, you will see there are enough studies and research done, and people will come say that corona is a creation of climate change. That's probably going to happen, and I'll be very unhappy if that is demonstrated or that is stated, but that's going to be a fact of life, and we have to live with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, such informative talk. And moving on, we have very short time. We'll just straight move to Dr. Amir Ali without wasting much time. Over to you, Amir sir.
So how much time do I have? 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes?
You can take 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So thank you so much. Thanks to Gupta sir for giving me this opportunity to speak on a very important topic in current context. Christy sir was mentioning about COVID in last talk. So you start with why COVID has started. So if you go to the origin of this pandemic, you see that we are playing with nature, and you see the consequence. The entire world is on its knees. So this is the misery, or this is the challenge which we can face when we are playing with nature. So this is one thing which we have to keep it in mind always. So don't play with nature. And we have already discussed so many things since morning about changing climate. So that is another example that changing climate is due to playing with nature. So we have already learned so many things that our climate is changing, and why it's changing, because we are playing with nature. So what to live? What is the message out of these two examples? Start living with harmony with nature. So this is the beginning. So I'm having my other points to make. Then what are the implications of changing climate? In 5 minutes, I have to try to complete. So if you see in different contexts, climate change is impacting your hill tracts, your urban areas, your rural areas. You go sector-wise. You see agriculture sector, forestry sector. You take a name. Then you go to coastal. You find different issues. And in all these, either context or sectors or whatever you want to say, certain disasters are definitely playing a big role in climatic conditions, in changing climatic conditions. Floods, we are seeing this very often, that flood is playing a big role. Say, combine floods with the, say, urban areas. So cities like Delhi, cities like Mumbai, cities like Chennai, we have seen the fury of those floods. And when we are combining floods and urban areas, you see that those urban floods, how costly are they going to be? Remember those Chennai floods? Or if you go internationally, go to Bangkok floods. So it's such a big and challenging thing that you have to really plan something very seriously to overcome those challenges. Then cyclones we had recently seen in urban context in Visakhapatnam. So these are few of the challenges. I'm not going in full details of these things. Then with changing climate is coming the extreme events, which paralyze almost the entire thing where they are impacted. Extreme events like we have seen in recent past, so many extreme events means which is beyond, which take us beyond the coping capacity. So we have to start planning for those things with this changing climatic conditions, that those extreme events are going to hit us very hard. So this is another challenge which we are going to face in coming future. So what is the solution for this? The solution is, let's try to make the community understand the issues involved in managing this. And here comes the importance of this topic of the webinar, popularizing climate science for public safety. So unless we are involving communities to understand how science, climate science is impacting us and what changes we can make, is we can't do it. And many speakers have already mentioned that a mainstream climate science. This is the mantra. Unless you invest in mainstreaming climate science in different facets of life, different sectors, different contexts, we are not going to achieve the thing. And adaptation is the key. So you have to adapt to live with changing climatic conditions. Many communities have already learned, and many are going to learn this. Unless we do it, we achieve the 100% adaptation. We are not going to get successes. So how to do it? Like you see the example how social media is playing in popularizing, say, early warning for cyclones. So we have seen in recent cyclones that early warning is moving very fast with the use of this social media, or say media. TV used to be the means. Now we have several means of social media which are helping us in popularizing this early warning and forecasting system in various scenarios. Then real challenges coming from rural areas. So you have to take this science-related things to rural areas, popularize it in rural communities or say communities. Unless we are doing this, you have to you are not doing some justice. Sir was mentioning something about housing and all those things as well. So you have to invest in popularizing science, climate science for various facets like uh, house heating. So in winters you need a lot of heating. So how to insulate, how to use that already available energy in the system. So these things need to be brought to local level. Then you have to use of material for changing climatic conditions. Emphasize on use of local material, using local technologies. Those are going to play a big role in mitigating the impact of climate change in our context. So these are the few things which I just want to emphasize within time limit for me. So the thing is, another important aspect which I just want to cover is just touch upon is invest in our next generation. So unless you catch the next population young and familiarize them with the changing climatic conditions and our this climate science things, we are not going to justify it, because they are living with they are seeing, they are observing this changing climatic conditions. So we have to start investing them. We have to inculcate so many that understanding among them, so that they can uh, take this message forward to popularize the climate science when they are going to be responsible citizens. And we have to use formal means, informal means. So we have to start investing more in how to popularize in related to this climate science things. So these are a few of the things which I want to say. I just want to conclude by saying that for popularizing climate science among the masses, you have to incentivize it, build the capacity. So unless we build the capacity in various facets of our everyday life, we are not going to justify it. So let's start investing it. Let's start investing in capacity building, and let's start using social media means for popularizing climate science among the masses. So with this, I just conclude and thank you again, Gupta Saab and his team for giving me this opportunity. I understand that due to time constraint, it's very difficult when we have so much of eminent panel of eminent speakers. It's very difficult to contain the time. We are already running almost 1.5 hours late. So thank you so much, Gupta sir. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and it's again thank you for providing this opportunity. I hope things are under control for management as well. Thank you so much.
Thank Now I would request Professor Anil Kumar Gupta to propose a concluding remarks, sir.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you all the dignitary speakers and panelists. And our executive director Bindal Saab is also joining, so he will also say a few words as closing remarks. He will be joining soon. Then let's please see if he has any technical issue. But this topic, which in fact took double the time which was allocated to this webinar, also indicates the importance of this theme, importance of this subject, and all the dignitaries, including the inaugural speakers, keynote speech by ED and NIDM, and special address by Professor Vinod Sharma sir, and the inaugural address by Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, highlighted the importance of this theme. And all the discourse also highlighted that we need to have a lot of discourse, much more discourse on this theme. So certainly we will be organizing even more detailed program, a kind of a workshop kind of thing, so that we can really understand and discuss the nitty-gritty of the developing a strategy for popularizing climate science for public safety and public welfare. So I'm really delighted to listen to all the speakers and panelists today. And with the paucity of time, we could not take the questions, but certainly we'll look at the chat box and we'll come back to the participants with the appropriate replies to them. And now our executive director, sir, is here. So I would request executive director NIDM, Major General Manoj Kumar, to say a few words as closing remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Anil Gupta. It was a very interesting webinar. I listened to the whole thing, and it was a great learning because all the speakers were experts in their own field, which itself gave us so much of knowledge and so many practical tips that we got. And the aspect that I was stressing upon, connecting the climate scientists with the community in a plain language, those aspects were also brought out loud and clear. So there are many ways we can actually go ahead in this whole thing. And I think the report of this webinar will go a long way. And there is a need to conduct such webinars again, wherein we can go sectoral for each of the 5-6 priority areas which have been referred by one speaker, or which was there as per the Ministry of Earth Sciences report also. And we can ensure that how it can reach the last mile. So with this, I thank all the participants and all the speakers for a very nice webinar and for asking too many questions which were really relevant and giving a good maintaining the discipline of the webinar also, because otherwise the speaking part, unmuting part, this.
Sir, you are muted.
Finished.
Thank you, sir. Actually, Professor Santosh Kumar sir was also a panelist, but we missed him because for some time he was not there. So we thought that he is not there. In case Professor Santosh sir is here, Thinless, do you see Professor Santosh Kumar, sir? Okay. Then with concluding remarks from ED and IDM, we close this seminar, and certainly we will have a series of dialogue on this subject because the subject is very important. And thank you, Professor Vinod Sharma, sir. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you. Thanks to Dr. Akhilesh Gupta for gracing this occasion, and all the participants who joined this webinar. And greetings to Thinless and the team for making this program a success.